The Galactic Marksmanship Competition had been running for 300 cycles, and in all that time, nobody had ever shown up with what looked like a museum piece, until today. I'm Crix, by the way. Junior Observer for the Torellian Games Commission. My job? Watch competitors, note their equipment, make sure nobody's cheating. Simple stuff. Boring, mostly. But today, standing in the registration hall of Station Helix 9, I found myself staring at the human with his mouth hanging open like a broken airlock. The human's name was Jack Sullivan. Average height for his species. Brown hair that looked like he'd just rolled out of a sleeping pod. He wore a jacket that had seen better decades, and slung over his shoulder was quite possibly the most primitive weapon I'd ever seen outside of a historical archive. "That's your competition rifle?" I heard myself ask, stylus hovering over my datapad. Jack grinned. Not the polite smile most species gave officials. This was different. Confident. Maybe a little dangerous. "Yep," he said, patting the wooden stock. "Actual wood, mind you. Not synthetic polymer. Not carbon fiber composite. Wood. Winchester Model 70. Manufactured in 1952. Earth years, that is." I did the math. The weapon was over 400 years old. "Sir," I began, trying to keep my voice professional, "you understand this is a precision shooting competition? We're talking about targets at ranges up to 6,000 meters. In variable gravity. With atmospheric interference." "I read the rules," Jack replied, still grinning. Around us, other competitors were checking in. A Vorthan team with plasma-sighted railguns. 2 Kentari marksmen carrying photonic disruptors that cost more than my yearly salary. Even a Drelix assassin, her bio-linked rifle already synchronizing with her neural implants. Every single one of them stopped to stare at the human with his antique. The Vorthan captain, a massive creature named Gormath, actually laughed. Deep, rumbling chuckles that shook his armored chest plates. "Is this a joke?" Gormath asked, leaning down to examine Jack's rifle. "Human, that weapon doesn't even have electronic sighting. I see no power source. No stabilization field. Are those iron sights?" "Sure are," Jack said cheerfully. "This will be entertaining," one of the Kentari muttered to his partner. They both smirked, their eye stalks twitching with amusement. I finished Jack's registration, handed him his competitor badge, and watched him walk toward the practice range. Part of me felt bad for him. The human had traveled all this way, probably spent a fortune on transport, just to embarrass himself in front of the galaxy's best shooters. The other part of me was curious. The practice range was a massive dome that could simulate any environment. Currently, it was set to standard atmospheric conditions. 20 competitors spread out across the firing line, each at their designated station. Jack took his position at lane 17. He set down a small wooden box, opened it, and began removing what looked like small brass cylinders. Ammunition. Actual chemical propellant ammunition. Next to him, the Drelix assassin, who went by the designation Thresh, watched with barely concealed contempt. "You know we have energy weapons now, yes?" Thresh hissed, her serpentine features twisting into what might have been a smile. "Your ancestors moved beyond gunpowder 4 centuries ago." "They did," Jack agreed, loading 5 rounds into his rifle's internal magazine. "But sometimes old doesn't mean obsolete." "We shall see," Thresh said, turning back to her own weapon. The practice session began. Standard warm-up targets appeared at 500 meters. Simple enough. Every competitor began firing. The sound was chaotic. The crack of railguns. The hum of energy weapons. The soft whisper of photonic disruptors, and then, cutting through it all, the sharp boom of Jack's rifle. I was monitoring from the observation deck with my supervisor, a veteran official named Torvik. He barely looked up at first. "How's our museum enthusiast doing?" Torvik asked, not really caring about the answer. I checked my datapad. Wait. What? He hit the target. Dead center. Torvik glanced at his own monitor. Lucky shot. Let's see if he can repeat it. Jack worked the bolt on his rifle. The mechanical action looked smooth, practiced. He chambered another round, settled behind the scope, and fired. Boom, another hit. Center mass point. 3 more shots. 3 more hits. All within a hand's width of each other. Torvik said. The targets shifted to 1,000 meters. The difficulty increased. Wind simulation activated. The smart weapons around us began calculating, adjusting, compensating. Jack took out a small notebook. Actual paper. He scribbled something, checked a worn chart, made an adjustment to his scope, and fired. Hit. He repeated the process. 4 more times. For more hits. Now people were noticing. Gormath had stopped shooting entirely, watching the human through his tactical visor. Is his equipment malfunctioning? The Vorthan asked. Those readings can't be correct. They're correct, I said, double-checking. He's matching pace with everyone else. That's impossible, Thresh said, slithering closer. At this range, without stabilization, without atmospheric compensation, without predictive algorithms, Jack loaded 5 more rounds, the targets jumped to 3,000 meters. At this distance, most species needed computer assistance just to see the targets clearly. The difficulty ramped up further. Moving platforms. Shifting light conditions. Random gravity fluctuations, perfect conditions for advanced technology to shine, terrible conditions for a 400-year-old rifle. Jack made more notes. Adjusted his scope again. Took 3 deep breaths, fired. The computer confirmed the hit before anyone else could. Then 4 more in rapid succession. The mechanical bolt action worked like clockwork. Smooth. Fast. Efficient. 0.5 targets. 5 hits. The practice range went quiet. Everyone had stopped shooting to watch. Luck, Gormath declared, but his voice lacked conviction. Random chance. Probability dictates he's a skilled marksman, Torvik interrupted, now fully focused on his monitor. Look at the grouping. Those shots are all within millimeters of each other. The range master announced the final practice scenario. 6 targets at 6,000 meters. Maximum distance. The targets wouldn't even be visible to the naked eye for most species. They'd appear on enhanced displays, but actually seeing them? Forget it, this was where technology dominated. Where computers and sensors and prediction algorithms separated champions from competitors. Jack stood up from his rifle. He walked to the edge of his station and stared downrange. Just stared. No enhanced visor. No tactical display. Just his own eyes. Then he returned to his rifle, made one final adjustment, and loaded 6 rounds. The other competitors had already started firing. Energy beams. Railgun projectiles. Photonic bursts. All guided by sophisticated targeting systems. Jack fired his first shot. Boom. Miss, someone said. The Kentari, sounding relieved, but then the computer updated, hit. Dead center. Jack worked the bolt. Fired again, hit the 4th shot. The 5th shot. The 6th shot, all hits. All center mass. All without computer assistance, without enhancement, without anything but skill and a 400-year-old rifle. The scoreboard updated. Jack Sullivan's name appeared in 3rd place. Behind the Drelix assassin. Behind Gormath. But ahead of 17 other competitors, all using cutting-edge technology. Gormath's laugh had vanished. Thresh's contempt had transformed into something else. Respect? Fear? Hard to tell with her species. Jack unloaded his rifle, carefully placed it back in its case, and started walking toward the exit. Wait. Torvik called out, practically jumping from his seat. How did you do that? Jack paused. That grin returned. Practice, he said simply. But the calculations, Thresh interjected, slithering forward. The wind speed, the gravity fluctuations, the Coriolis effect at that range, I did the math, Jack replied, tapping his notebook. Same math snipers have been doing for centuries. Numbers don't change just because technology does. Tomorrow is the actual competition, Gormath said, his tone no longer mocking. You understand the final round involves targets nobody has seen before? Conditions will be hostile. Unpredictable. Jack's grin widened. Good, he said. I like a challenge. He left the range, leaving behind a room full of the galaxy's best marksmen, all staring at where he'd been standing, all wondering the same thing. How badly had they underestimated humanity? I looked at Torvik. He looked at me. Tomorrow's going to be interesting, he said. That might have been the understatement of the cycle. Tournament day arrived with all the ceremony and spectacle you'd expect from a galactic competition. Thousands of spectators filled the observation platforms. Holographic displays floated everywhere, showing odds, statistics, competitor profiles. The betting pools had shifted overnight, but Jack Sullivan remained a long shot at 40-1 odds. Barely slept. Kept running yesterday's numbers through my head. Those shots shouldn't have been possible. Not with that equipment. Not without assistance. Torvik found me near the competitor entrance, looking just as tired. Our human friend caused quite a stir, he said, holding up his datapad. Every major news network wants an interview. The Vorthan embassy filed a formal complaint, claiming equipment violations. I spent 3 hours last night proving that a mechanical rifle with iron sights doesn't break any rules because nobody thought to make rules about them. Where is he? I asked. Already on the range. Been there since dawn, apparently. We headed down to the main arena. The setup was impressive even by competition standards. The dome had been reconfigured into a hostile environment simulation. Extreme winds. Shifting gravity. Poor visibility. Random obstacles. 6 shooting stations, 6 competitors. The top scorers from yesterday's practice round, Jack, stood at Station 4, rifle case at his feet, wearing the same worn jacket. He was talking to another competitor. Actually talking. Like they were discussing weather, not preparing for the most prestigious marksmanship competition in known space. The other competitor was Alara, a Keshri sniper famous for her work in the Rim Wars. 4 eyes, natural camouflage, reflexes faster than any human. Her weapon was a masterwork of engineering, custom-built, worth more than most starships. So you just feel the wind? Alara was asking, her translator rendering her clicks and whistles into standard speech. More or less, Jack replied. You watch how the air moves. Look for heat shimmer. Check vegetation if there is any. Your body tells you things if you listen. But my rifle has sensors that calculate all environmental factors instantly. Sure. But sensors can malfunction. Get jammed. Run out of power. Your instincts? Those are always online. Alara's eyes blinked in sequence, a sign of confusion in her species. You trust yourself more than technology? Jack smiled. I trust myself and technology. But I make the final call, not a computer. The announcement system crackled to life. Range Master Vaughn, a Polarian official who'd been running these competitions for decades, began the opening ceremony. Speeches. Introductions. The usual formalities. Finally, the actual competition began around 3,000 meters. Standard targets. Environmental difficulty set to moderate. All 6 competitors took their positions. Jack opened his wooden box, removed 5 brass cartridges, loaded them with practiced efficiency. Gormath was at Station 1, his massive railgun humming with power. Thresh occupied Station 2, her bio-linked rifle already synchronized with her neural patterns. Alara at 3. Jack at 4. The 2 Kentari brothers, Pix and Vorn, at 5 and 6. The targets appeared on everyone's displays. Except Jack's. He didn't have a display. Just his eyes and that ancient scope. Competitors ready, Vaughn announced. You may fire when ready. The railgun cracked first. Gormath's shot hit center mass. Thresh fired a half-second later. Also a hit. Ilara's weapon whispered. Another hit. Jack's rifle boomed, hit. 4 more shots from each competitor. All hits across the board. Professional shooters don't miss at 3,000 meters, regardless of equipment. Round 2. 4,000 meters. Difficulty increased. Wind speed doubled. Gravity fluctuations introduced. This is where technology started proving its worth. The smart weapons adjusted automatically. Compensated. Calculated. Jack pulled out his notebook. Scribbled numbers. Checked his charts. Made scope adjustments with small, precise movements. Fired, hit. The crowd started paying attention. Murmurs rippled through the observation platforms. The human was keeping pace around 5,000 meters. Visibility reduced by 30%. Random obstacles introduced between shooter and target. Gormath cursed in his native language. His first shot missed by centimeters. His rifle recalculated, adjusted. Second shot hit. Thresh's expression was unreadable, but her tail lashed back and forth. Stress indicator. Her first shot hit. Barely. Jack fired all 5 rounds with mechanical precision. 5 hits. Not all dead center, but all solid impacts. The scoreboard showed all 6 competitors neck and neck. 1 round remained. Ladies, gentlemen, and honored beings, Vaughn announced, his voice carrying that dramatic flair officials love. The final round. 6 targets at 6,000 meters. But here's the twist. The targets are camouflaged. They blend with the environment. They're moving on randomized patterns. And they're small. Very small. A holographic display showed the targets. Barely larger than a human fist. Practically invisible against the simulated terrain. Competitors will have 6 shots total. 1 per target. No corrections. No second chances. Hit or miss. This determines our champion. Torvik whistled low. That's brutal. Even with enhanced targeting, those are nearly impossible to track. Down on the range, I watched the competitors react. Gormath adjusted his visor, cycling through scanning modes. Thresh's rifle began a deep scan, searching for target signatures. The Kentari brothers conferred quietly, linking their systems for shared data. Alara stared downrange, all 4 eyes focused, her natural predator instincts engaged. Jack stood up from his rifle. Walked to the front of his station. Stared, just stared. No computer. No scanner. No enhancement. 5 minutes passed. The crowd grew restless. Other competitors had already started firing. Gormath's first shot missed. His second hit. Thresh hit her first 2 targets, both by narrow margins. Jack remained motionless. Watching. Reading the environment like a book written in a language only he understood. Then he returned to his rifle. Made adjustments. Loaded 6 rounds, and started firing. Boom. Pause. Work the bolt. Boom. Pause. Work the bolt. The rhythm was almost meditative. Mechanical. Human. Each shot took maybe 10 seconds. Aim. Breathe. Fire. Reload. 6 shots. Roughly 1 minute total. The computer processed the results. The arena fell silent. 6 hits. All 6 targets. Center mass on 5 of them. Edge hit on 1, but still a solid impact. The scoreboard updated. Jack Sullivan jumped to second place, behind only Thresh, who'd managed 5 hits out of 6, but 2 competitors remained. Ilara and Vorn. Ilara fired her final 2 shots. 1 hit. 1 miss. She dropped to 4th place. Vorn had 3 shots left. 3 targets remaining. If he hit all 3, he'd tie Jack. Hit 2, and Jack stayed in second. The Kentari steadied himself. His weapon was top-tier technology. His skill was undeniable. He'd trained for this his entire life. First shot. Hit a second shot. Hit. The crowd leaned forward. Every being in the arena focused on Vorn. Final shot. 1 target left. 1 chance for glory. Vorn fired. The computer took 3 seconds to process. 3 very long seconds. Mississippi. By 2 centimeters, the arena exploded with noise. Cheers. Groans. The sound of 1,000 beings reacting at once. Jack Sullivan, human, with his 400-year-old rifle, had placed second in the Galactic Marksmanship Competition. Thresh had won, but barely. And she knew it. The award ceremony was professional. Dignified. Thresh received her trophy with the cold grace her species was known for. Jack accepted his second-place medal with that same easy grin, but afterward, things got interesting. Was filing my official report when I heard shouting near the competitor area. Ran over to find Gormath, still in his tactical gear, confronting Jack. Explain, the Vorthan demanded. How does primitive equipment compete with advanced technology? What am I missing? Jack set down his rifle case. You're not missing anything. Your equipment is better than mine. Faster. More accurate. More consistent. Then how? Because I don't rely on it completely. Your rifle tells you where to aim. Mine doesn't. So I learned to read wind, distance, temperature, humidity. I learned to feel when a shot is right. Your technology makes you better, but it also makes you dependent. Thresh approached, moving with that unsettling grace. He's correct. I reviewed my performance. 7 times my rifle suggested firing solutions I overrode with my own judgment. 6 of those times, I was right. The 7th, I trusted the computer. That was my only miss. Ilara joined them, her 4 eyes blinking thoughtfully. So technology should serve us, not replace our skills. Exactly, Jack said. Use every advantage you have. But stay sharp. Stay practiced. Because the day your equipment fails, your skill is all you've got left. Gormath's aggressive posture softened. He extended a massive hand. Jack shook it, his human hand nearly disappearing in the Vorthan's grip. You have taught me something today, human, Gormath said. Respect for fundamentals. For mastery of basics. Over the next hour, something remarkable happened. Competitors from a dozen species gathered around Jack Sullivan and his antique rifle. Asked questions. Listened to explanations. Took notes. The human who'd been laughed at 24 hours earlier was now teaching a masterclass to some of the galaxy's finest marksmen. Torvik stood beside me, watching the scene. You know what this means? He asked. What? Next cycle, we're going to have competitors showing up with all kinds of primitive weapons. Mechanical rifles. Powder charges. Maybe even bows and arrows. I laughed. That would be interesting. Humans, Torvik said, shaking his head. They show up to a high-tech competition with museum pieces and somehow make everyone else look foolish. What's next? Fighting starships with wooden boats? Wouldn't surprise me, I replied. Jack eventually packed up his rifle, said his goodbyes, and headed for the exit. I caught up with him near the transport tubes. Mr. Sullivan. One question. Why'd you use that specific rifle? You could have brought modern human equipment. Jack paused. That grin appeared again. My grandfather carried this rifle. Taught me to shoot with it when I was 8 years old. Taught me patience. Discipline. Respect for the craft. Every time I pick it up, I remember those lessons. Modern rifles are great. But this one? He patted the case. This one makes me a better shot because it forces me to be better. No shortcuts. No easy answers. Just me, the rifle, and the target. He started to leave, then stopped. Besides, he added, everyone loves an underdog story. Figured I'd give them one to remember. He disappeared into the crowd, leaving behind an arena full of beings who'd learned something important that day. Sometimes old isn't obsolete. Sometimes technology isn't everything. And sometimes, the most dangerous competitor is the one everyone underestimates. I filed my report. Packed my equipment. Started the long trip home, but I kept thinking about Jack Sullivan and his antique rifle. About the shots nobody thought he could make. About the lesson he'd taught without even trying. Humans, I decided, were going to keep surprising us. And maybe that was a good thing. The galaxy needed a little humility now and then.